Hi there, people. I've been on a little hiatus from podcasting, which is unfortunate because I really do like it. Well, we're back at it, and season 2 will begin right now with Kiira Benzing, who is a director, producer, and actress. I'm hoping to have more of these, and I'm changing up the format a bit as well. I'm going to be doing a lot of different things, maybe a little bit reviews, maybe some engineering stuff for film, just a bunch of stuff. So hopefully stay tuned and enjoy. Thank you. Welcome to Photography of Director. We have with us Kiira Benzing, and this is actually the third introduction I'm giving her, but you guys aren't going to hear the other two. But you are a producer, a director, a writer, and you also act, right? You were an actress first. So why the hell are you doing this many things?
I think it's the only way to survive in this independent industry. I think you have to wear a lot of hats. Especially as a documentary filmmaker, you are wearing a lot of hats at all times. You're improvising all the time. You're responding to weather changes and traffic issues, and you have subjects that are fragile and need more attention. I mean, you're just always responding to things. So you have to wear a lot of hats. And now we also have to fundraise as filmmakers. I mean, it's not just filmmaking. It's also wearing the fundraising hat, wearing the distribution hat, thinking about what your social media engagement is like, what your outreach campaign could be. So
there's a lot to do. There's a lot to do.
There's a lot to juggle.
So you mentioned documentary filmmaking. Is that really what your focus is on?
Yes. I'd say about 75% of my focus is on doc filmmaking, but I keep getting pulled into narrative projects. I did one with you. You and Richard had approached me this fall about doing another one, and that project looked really exciting. I've never done a horror film, so I think that could have been really great. It just didn't line up with my documentary creating habits. So,
the problem is in a documentary, you're on call 24/7, basically.
Yes. That is very true. I mean, I'm coordinating the schedule, so that would make me the production manager. I'm hiring all my crew. I'm working with my line producer to negotiate all the contracts. So it's a lot of aspects that go into it besides just preparing for the interview and doing the research and going to the locations and meeting, getting to know my subjects, meeting with them, making sure that they feel comfortable before they let me into their lives.
You know what I'm going to do? Usually I don't do this first on the episode, but I want to show them. Let me show a clip of the Wavemaker because you worked so long on that, and then we'll discuss that first, actually, just so they get a sense of what you're working on,
Sure, yeah,
right.
We're still working on it.
Yeah, you're still working on it.
It's going to be years. Hopefully I finish it before I turn 50.
Well, actually, yeah, okay, so I'm going to bring up the clip, but tell us real brief, what is the Wavemaker about?
It's about an outsider scientist who has a different perspective of nature. So he sees everything as made up of waves instead of atoms. And he's looking at this approach, he's taking this theory that he's developed and he's approaching all different fields from medical disease. He's approaching that through exercise. He's applying it to cold fusion and renewable energy. And he's also applying it to metallurgy. We'll see if we have room for that last part in the film.
So this is a guy you found. I think he was a family friend or something, right?
That's right, yeah. My father is an athlete, and Irv has a long history being involved with the Olympics.
Right, so this doctor is sort of, just to give a little bit more about, he's sort of on the outs, right? He was, that's why he's an interesting character to follow. He's on the outs. People don't believe everything he's saying, and I think his license was even taken away. Is that correct?
That's all correct, yes. His medical license was revoked. He's definitely had some adversaries. I think anytime you are challenging anything mainstream, you're going to find foes who want to challenge you back and make sure that your ideas are not heard. So he's really a fighter, and he's certainly on the outside of
conventional.
The outside of convention.
Just general convention.
All conventions. The outside of, I think, the medical treatment of disease and understanding of disease and the way that we would respond to a disease like cancer or Parkinson's or MS. I think he's also, just looking at science and creating a link between classical physics and quantum physics. He sees everything as connected, which is really challenging mainstream science in every way.
Well, I'm not going to get into string theory here, but it sounds it sounds like he's onto something. So hold on, let me show the Wavemaker just so people get a sense of what you're working on.
Stop thinking about everything else for a minute. Think of a wave waving within a wave. And the heartbeat climbs as a cycle up to the peak of exercise where you have the highest frequency and an amplitude, and then it's slowing down. It's nested waves in the wave, within waves, like in an ocean. See, waves in waves in waves. And I said it's fractal, it's self-similar at different scales. And so instead of doing what Galileo and Newton did, is to straighten a wave out, I went the opposite direction. I took the wave and waved the wave. How simple.
He really hopes to achieve a new world understanding, that science is founded on principles that he believes are completely backward.
One called him a crook, another called Dardic a shyster.
I think he's one of those pioneers that people are going to wake up one day and they're just going to turn around and say, aha, Irv's been right all along.
This is huge. This is huge, what we're talking about.
The first time my father recognized waves as an inherent part of the building blocks of the universe came in 1985, and he was recording athletes' biological rhythms, performance techniques. We started to see these fluctuations and these cyclic patterns, and it translated into the different areas of science very well, and it grew from there.
My wife and I bought lots of things, read lots of things on the internet about Parkinson's once I was diagnosed, and we were thoroughly depressed. The first day I met Irv, he put me through a couple of sample cycles. The fact is that without him, I would be in a wheelchair now. You wouldn't even be interviewing me.
When my son started to not feel well, it was only natural for me to go that route along with the medical route at the same time to try and help him heal as a whole person. It's very different when you don't feel good than when your kids don't. So.
I've heard him talk about his super waves. He thinks there's a principle there that applies to people, to living creatures, to atoms, to the cosmos, to the fabric of space and time itself on an equal footing. If I point to that as being Dardic's principle, then the conclusion is that it's going to be very difficult for Dardic to sell that to the scientific community.
It ain't rocket science. Well, rocket science isn't rocket science. There isn't a hell of a lot you need to do to make a rocket go, right? You know, and Einstein isn't Einstein either, and Irv could be more than Einstein.
Could he really have a cure? We just don't know about it.
You know, there's a chance that pigs can fly.
I began getting people sending me flying pigs from all over the place, all over the country. And
we started collecting flying pigs, and every business associate, every friend, everyone has, over all these years, sent us flying pigs.
And it's really become their mantra that pigs do fly.
If you just look at this one phenomenon, all of these things now suddenly fall together.
We can achieve a healthier planet, a healthier society. We can live harmoniously with nature with this new understanding.
People say to me, well, you should be humble. You should say, if I'm right, you know, the way scientists do, it's a hypothesis. We'll see if it's right by putting to the test. This is it. I know this is right.
Okay, so I mean, we've seen a bit of the Wavemaker. So tell us, I want to go back to you now. Like, was this like the first project you sort of took on, and this is your first documentary that's not even done yet, basically, right?
That's right. I started on this project, and I've completed about 4 other projects while I've still been working on this project. So everything has its own time span, I suppose. But yeah, this was Wavemaker was my first foray into documentary filmmaking, into filmmaking in general. I mean, I'd been an actor in a couple of short films, and I did my post-grad at Lambda in the UK, and then started applying for grants to make this film. And then here I am, 6 years later, still working on it.
So what was the impetus that pushed you to make this movie? Like, why,
I met Dardik, I guess it's about 7 years ago, while I was still at college, and I thought he was a fascinating person. I was really inspired by the people that were coming through his business doors. They were very sick people. I mean, I met people with brain tumors that, they'd had cancer for 10 years. They were still dancing. They seemed really healthy. I met people who had breathing difficulties and couldn't walk for more than 20 feet at a time. I met a girl who the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. She had to drop out of college. She had to quit her job. She started trying to travel. Basically, they ended up diagnosing her with something sort of like chronic fatigue syndrome, but her normal life just changed. She lost everything that was normal to her, all of her habits, all of her ambitions. She just couldn't pursue them. And then she did this exercise program, which Dardik and his wife, Allison Godfrey, started, called Cycles, or it's called Life Waves. And then part of Life Waves, this exercise program, is these exercises which they call cycles. So I was really fascinated by these different cases, and then also his personal life and his music ability, his desire to change the way we see science.
Well, what's interesting, because the way we met maybe before that, but I worked on a couple of days of your documentary. And yes. What was fascinating is that, okay, this might be a genius. It might not, right, this guy. And on top of all of that, like whether he's dealing with, am I changing the world, he has like domestic issues. He has like an ex-wife, right? He has like an ex-wife who wants all his money, and he's having problems and moving houses and changing. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about all this, but
yeah, that's okay. No, yeah. I mean, they had financial issues. I think a lot of the country was seeing that. They had to downsize from their 12-bedroom house to a 4-bedroom house, downsize again to a smaller house. They were losing all their money. All of his, definitely resources were an issue for him. And I think anytime you're doing something that's slightly out of step with the rest of convention, it's going to be harder to fundraise.
Can we talk about the jail thing?
Maybe not.
Okay, let's not talk about the jail.
Keep that as a surprise for the film.
Why? Get some publicity going right now. Okay, we won't talk.
I could say that there have been some interesting episodes, and I've certainly filmed in some places where it's been a good challenge to get clearances. Right.
Okay. We've said enough, but this is an ongoing documentary that you've been doing for 5-6 years, you said.
Yeah, that's right. It's going on, I guess this summer it'll be about 6 years, so I'm 5.5 years right now.
The other thing I want to say is I think you're the first female guest on the show.
Oh, fantastic. I'm representing the female filmmakers.
That's right. Well, which is important. I actually want to get more women to discuss being a woman filmmaker because, honestly, at least in the feature film world and commercial world that I work with, there's not too many of them in terms of grips and electrics and even directors. It's sort of iffy. Producers is more producers as women, Mm-hmm. So can you give us your perspective on it? A woman in the female industry, Is there anything different for you, or is it all the same?
Sure. No, it's definitely different. I mean, I've 90% of the time my crew is male. I'm always, if I can hire a female, I'm always trying to give them positions.
Oh, so reverse sexism. Reverse sexism for you.
No, it's about whose style fits, but right. I want to give an interview opportunity at least to a female and try and give as many opportunities as I can. And so that's one part. I'll at least try and cast my net wide so that I can bring in as many females to interview for lead positions like cinematographers, sound. Our first AC on my hybrid documentary was a woman, and she does a lot of work as a G&E in the G&E department. So that was really exciting.
It was exciting to meet one woman in the grip and electric department.
It's exciting to bring on a woman who's, who works as a G&E department, who works as a grip and also is very talented as a cinematographer. She's growing as a cinematographer, and I thought she was an excellent first AC to have. So, yeah.
So you're talking once again from the producer's point of view, that because you're hiring these people. Is there any personal struggles that you saw that you had that you think a man wouldn't have had, or any sexism that you've experienced in the industry See, I mean, I don't ask men this because there's no sexism for the men. So
Right.
they want the sexism.
I don't know about sexism just yet. I'm sure I have encountered in it. Maybe I'm just sort of tuning it out as much as I can so I can stay focused on forging ahead and making opportunities for myself. But definitely, I think that there are, I think a lot of the women have been pointing out over Oscar season, the award season recently, that there are pay inequalities. I wouldn't second guess that. There's certainly some jobs I've interviewed for, and I've wondered if, they hired a male, if they would be paid more than me. I do think it's a struggle also just to even get an interview to be a female director, to be considered as a female director. It's I do think that there aren't quite as many opportunities, so you have to create them.
Right. And well, that makes sense because you're doing your own documentaries and you're making your own projects, so you're probably not actively trying to get a job somewhere directing for somebody else, right?
I'm interested in that.
Well, of course. But I mean, it's not like an everyday pursuit. You're doing your own thing.
I'm so busy juggling personal projects and some projects for hire that it's been okay for me right now that I haven't had to actively pursue hunting for a job every day and making sure that my resume is as bolstered as any man's.
Right.
But I do think that my male counterparts have more opportunities. They're approached more frequently to direct music videos and films.
Right.
Than I've seen from my fellow female filmmakers.
Well, that's why I was asking you. I'm curious to know because you're like I said, I've interviewed at this point maybe 10 people on the podcast, and you're the first woman. And it's not because I'm trying not to get women. It's not that. It's because I have to find them, locate them in my phone because there's just full of guys, full of dudes in my phone. You know what I mean? Yeah,
absolutely. I can. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, all my contacts over the years, because like I said, most directors I've worked with are men. You're one of the few women that I worked with as a director, and it's a lot more pleasant, folks.
Yeah, we're caretakers, right? I was trying to nurture my crew. I'm trying to make sure everyone's well fed and
right. She had a spoon feeding me, basically. But yes, I mean, honestly, if I was to say what the difference is, women are actually way more detail oriented than men. I know this might sound sexist against men even, but women do care way more about getting everything right before they go and shoot, with the few women who are directors and producers in my case, than the men counterparts, who are much more gung-ho about it. So whether that's I don't know what's a bonus or not, but I actually prefer the more detail-oriented person. So, and that's why you were a producer for one of my other films. So,
right, filled with a lot of details. Yes,
details are important in these types of things, and when no matter who when you see somebody good who actually pays attention to details, you want to use them. So that's important. Cool. So we've covered the sexism of the film industry. Now let's move on.
I don't know that we've solved it yet, but we've touched upon it.
We've solved it. Okay, so let's move on to I have a website up called Connection Unavailable. So this is a web series you're doing now as well, besides all the documentary work. And why don't you tell us a bit about what's going on? And then I'm not sure if there's a trailer to play per se, right? There's not
There isn't a trailer, no. I mean, you could play one of the clips from the one of the scenes, maybe, or one of the clips.
Got it. Okay, I'll pick a clip, but why don't you tell us what is this project, Connection Unavailable?
It's a new media series. It's a comedy, and it's about social media addicts, and the story is told almost entirely through social media. We have a couple clips of longer videos that are on Vimeo and YouTube, but a lot of the story unravels over social media, and each of the characters have a variety of social media accounts. Some of them have their own web pages and forum boards that they also are tied into.
Oh, so the actors have fake accounts and they pretend to be these people in social media, basically.
That's right, exactly. Okay. Well, it's all scripted. So
No, yeah. I understand, but you can actually go tweet with these actors. You can go Facebook these actors who are then they're pretending to be somebody, basically.
That's right. You could interact with these characters. You could retweet things that they say. You can go to the web series page and you can scroll through it and see sort of a curated version of the story of some of the key events and plot points that are happening in all of the main videos. And then you could take, for example, Beth's character, and you could explore just her character. So it's a little bit like a choose your own adventure. And you could just say, I just want to look at all of Beth's interactions on Instagram, all of her interactions on Twitter. I want to connect with her on Facebook and send her a message. And you could just dig through Beth alone. Or you could look at all of the characters and see how they're crisscrossing of their involvement on Twitter.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I mean, that sounds... it's a lot of work, actually. That sounds like it's...
It's a lot of work.
That's 24/7 acting, right?
Developers, it's been a lot of planning. It's been about 2 years, almost, not quite, about a year and 8 months of releasing until, building up until we just released last week. So it's there's been a lot of strategy and thought behind it and trying to develop the right story that could unfold in this kind of format. We knew we wanted it to be a comedy, but what kind of comedy?
So who are you in this program?
I'm a gamer. I have two sides on this.
And I know, Kiira, you don't play any games.
I did some research playing some games before we filmed.
Right.
So
you picked up the Game Boy and.
I did right on the computer. I played Mirror's Edge a bit, and I put Celtic Heroes. I downloaded that to my phone.
You're not a gamer. You're not a gamer.
Playing that in all of the episodes. I'm playing Celtic Heroes.
You're not a gamer until you play World of Warcraft
that is
for 2 years.
True. I'm not legit. Not yet.
So you're a gamer are you helping produce or you're just acting in this?
I'm also producing, yeah. So I was involved in the initial strategy and development of the project for over a year. Yeah, and helped bring some members to the team and pitched in ideas of how this could flow, what kind of story this could be.
So yeah, this is a long-term project because there's no way you can do one episode of this and have it catch on. It's more like you have to continue being that character for years, basically. Maybe, right. That's entirely possible. Yeah, this might be my alter ego for the next 5 years. This is your avatar. That's right. So that's cool. Is this a new idea? I mean, I actually haven't heard of something so integrated with social media. Is this one of the first ones or other people have done this? I've seen a couple of things that are scratching this kind of surface. I mean, the Lizzie Bennet Diaries is a new media series that it's based on a vlog account of a character named Lizzie Bennet, and all of the characters have social media accounts, and story unfolds across multi-platforms there too. But I mean, we really wanted to pitch our story entirely unfolding through social media, and then that sort of joke within a joke is that the story is about social media addicts, and it's unfolding across multiple social media accounts at the same time. Cool. And on this webpage, if obviously people are interested in check it out, can they actually go and find your Twitter links and follow you? They can. That's right. They can follow me on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. As the gamer, right? As Kiira the gamer. That's right. Yes. I see. And they can the same thing with all the other characters. You didn't really change your name, so that's good. No, the writer-director, David, knew that I would be part of the cast, so that's right. So my character was named after me. Basically, it looks like it's based on David Pounds, and he has an internet addiction society. Is this correct? That's correct. You got it so far. I've got the premise. Right. So now anyone who's listening could hashtag stop liking, start living. And he's doing more of a Steve Carell type of Office type of comedy. Right. That's what it looks like. Yeah, that's I'd say that's sort of the type of style, and that's the way that we chose to shoot it. Okay, so I'm going to go on to I'll show a bit of other plans, because the way we worked again is now I was producing the whole movie, but you produced a movie called Other Plans, which I've talked on before in the podcast with Joe Eckhart, who was the director. But I'll play a little bit and then we chat about it from your perspective, okay? well, first of all, tell us what you did in other plans and how you got involved.
Maybe the question is, what didn't I do on other plans?
Let's start with that. What didn't you do in other plans?
I did not shoot the film. I was not the cinematographer.
That's the only job.
One thing that I didn't hang any lights. I give all the credit to the G&E department for that.
Cool. So no gaffing for you and no cinematography for you. But basically, You're saying you did everything else.
I did everything else. I think so, right? I mean, I helped feed the crew, coordinate catering, locations. I supported Jesse with the permits. I was helping to figure out with the second AD how to get cast and crew to certain locations. Certainly, I did a lot of location scouting and negotiated locations before we filmed. I have a cameo appearance as the secretary at the front of the office, so there's a little bit of an acting glimpse there. So I'm not sure what else I'm leaving out, right? I helped Jesse with deal memos and...
Yeah, basically you did from A to Z in terms of helping produce the movie as well. It wasn't just like you had a lot of responsibility because it's an independent film. Once again, everybody has to do way more than we should. It's just the way it is. But let's talk about this because this relates directly to you. So this is one of those movies where you stepped away from documentary filmmaking and you went into narrative filmmaking now. So yes. For you, what was is this your first narrative feature that you worked on?
As a producer, yes.
And what was that process like? Did you find it any different than the documentary world? Like, what is the difference to you?
Hugely different. I mean, it was the first time that I was working with more than 2 people on a crew, right? I mean, our in the past, I'm typically not quite a one-man band for certain. I mean, a documentary still takes a village to create, but I'm, with my DP and sound, that's it. And sometimes DP is also doing sound. So I'm used to having just 1 or 2 other people with me when I'm shooting a documentary. So to have a crew of 40 people is massive. Right.
Isn't that funny? Even an independent film will have like 30, 40 people on set. It's sort of ludicrous in a way.
Definitely. I mean, there's just a lot more, and it's a lot more coordination. I mean, there's a heck of a lot of coordination, even on a small documentary shoot. I always forget, until the day before I'm shooting again, how much work goes in. I'm always drafting another deal memo just before we film. Or maybe I've done that a week ahead, but I'm printing that deal memo and I'm making sure I have my, COIs for wherever we're shooting. And I'm making sure the interview questions are in the right order. And I'm, double checking that my crew knows exactly where they're showing up the next day. I mean, there's that just to do a small shoot takes so much coordination, but then you sort of multiply this out to another 30, 40 people and you have bigger things to think about. Where are you feeding all of these people? How is your day running? What if it's raining? Whose car is parked in the wrong spot and needs to be moved every hour? So, especially in New York City.
Right. And so how was it actually? What was your experience producing right in the middle of Manhattan and dealing with all that on a daily basis? Were you about to go crazy, or did you enjoy the process?
Both. I think I was enjoying the craziness, but there were many moments where you're just faced with so many things. There almost begins to be a point where your to-do list is so huge, and you have to get all of those things done before the next day, but suddenly something else comes through where you're in violation of a fire code, and like that has to be dealt with right away because the building manager is tapping you on the back and saying, like, you need to do this. You can't block this exit. So then, you're shuffling to make that thing happen. But of course, the next 15 things are also priorities and need to happen before 4 a.m. the next day. So.
Right. And let's tell everybody that this is basically this is what's even harder. This is a 12-day shoot. So you have to fit 10 pages. I forgot what the script was. Maybe 90 pages, whatever.
I think it was closer to 90.
But 90 pages still in like 12 days. That's a doozy.
And we were shooting in some of the highest heat, right? So there was that carriage scene,
for example. It was a heat wave.
And you can't have, and I just remember that whole coordination. We were trying to arrange that horse and carriage. And of course, we only found out from the DOT that we couldn't have horses. We're not allowed to be out in over
100-degree weather with the horses.
In over 95-degree weather, and it was like 104. So that was just never going to happen.
So yeah, I'll sort of reiterate what you said, because in the script we have a horse and carriage scene in a New York movie, love story, Cinderella type movie. And nobody realized until maybe a few days before, a week before, that we couldn't have horses in 100-degree heat.
Right. We had, that's just something that we just didn't know. That that you're not planning for, and you're not, we had calls into the DOT a week ahead, but of course they got back to us, and that's not to say they're busy too, and they're stacked up with other things. So it's, it all sort of comes together just before you're shooting or while you're shooting.
Right. And
hopefully just before.
And it still, at the end of the day, worked. We were able to get just an old style...
Beautiful picture car.
Yeah, beautiful picture car, which still worked. I don't think anyone will miss the horse and carriage. So maybe the director.
I may miss the horse and carriage, but the picture car was beautiful and was a great solution.
Yeah. And we can have it anytime we want it, and it's not like an animal and you have to feed and clean its poop.
Pass out in heat. Nope, we didn't need to transport it on a flatbed truck. There were all kinds of great things.
It's kind of crazy. It's kind of a godsend we didn't actually deal with a horse and carriage for a small independent film, which I think still we were, even with 30, 40 people on set,
Definitely, yeah.
Cool. So both crazy, both not. Let's talk about your last project. We'll go back to documentary now, and now you're working on so many things at once. But Double Portrait, you don't really have any video I'm showing, but this is just your Facebook page, and it's basically another documentary. So tell us about this.
It's a hybrid doc. So it's about two 80-year-old artists that have both lived their art careers in New York City. They've been through incredible art periods. Arnold seeing the West Village grow and flourish, and Hilda being a part of the abstract expressionist movement. She lived under de Kooning Studio and lived right on East 10th Street, which was really the peak of the abstract expressionist movement. So it's a love story to New York. It's about each of their lives. It's a portrait of each of their lives. It's personal, and it's got these elements of the supernatural. There are these fantasy sequences that happen in it. So hopefully it will keep the audience a little bit on their toes, while also being something, showing them the personal lives of these artists and how dedicated they still are to making art every day. For me, even if I'm shooting in a fictional sense, because this hybrid documentary has these fictional moments too, so now we've had a taste of both. Mm-hmm. And certainly, and we filmed some big scenes outside. We had a big exterior shoot.
So in this particular documentary, Double Portrait, you're actually mixing formats, sort of. So you are doing some narrative stuff in between here.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So what do you prefer, though? What's the answer to that?
I don't think I have a preference. I mean, what I love about documentary filmmaking is that everything is real. Even if someone is performing for camera.
Well, that is a preference, because everything in the feature film world is fake. So
I don't think so, though, right? I think you're trying to get back to the truth. That's what a good performance is. So
I think you're right. At the end of the day, maybe when you cut it all together, and hopefully in the moment there's some truth, but you're creating artifice. Like it's all created. Do you know what I mean? There's no, you're not. I've done this enough that I have my own philosophy on it, but you can catch moments, which you were talking about. That always happens, and it's magical. But still, you were creating that, and you spent 6 hours creating that to happen. Mm-hmm. It's not like we go there
and we don't know what's going to happen.
And we are creating. I mean, sometimes yes, an actor gives a look or says a word a certain way, or a bird flies into the scene that wasn't supposed to come in. Mm-hmm. The beautiful things happen, of course, but I think it's all, we've spent so much time trying to make that moment, mm-hmm. As opposed to, I feel, a documentary, you're not actually doing that. You're hopefully. At least in a classical sense of documentary, quote unquote, because now it's all somewhat created, you know what I mean? Because people are putting words in people's mouths, but I think when you go out there, you're just trying to capture what this guy is doing, what he's saying, how his life is, maybe a little bit closer to the way it actually is, as opposed to a narrative film.
Right. I mean, there's still a certain amount of control, because it's where you're choosing to put the camera.
There is control always. And actually, that's why I think we both like it. We're both control freaks.
And obsessively oriented towards details. So I really don't think I have a preference right now. And that's exciting to me.
Yeah, why not?
I think both domains have a real interest to me. I mean, I guess if I were to say maybe my heart is still a little bit more strongly in documentary filmmaking. I think there are really powerful stories to tell there, and I think that there's a lot that you can do in terms of impact and outreach. You can change, political decisions. You can open people's eyes to a new practice or idea. I think that holds a lot of power, but you can also do that with a fiction film. And definitely this new media space is something that really interests me because I think it allows for a lot more audience engagement. And I love those possibilities.
Yeah, definitely the new media thing is, I'm too old for that, So,
I don't think so.
What is this Twitter that kids are talking about? But, okay, so my last question to you before we go is looking at other younger filmmakers, do you have any words of wisdom, and was it worth pursuing filmmaking and documentary filmmaking?
So far, I mean, it's been...
Yeah, talk to me in 5 years.
Right, exactly, or maybe 10. I think that I'm still in the weeds right now. I can't see my path just yet. There's a lot for me to navigate. These waters still feel really, really...
choppy?
Well, just unpredictable, right? I mean, I think that the distribution game is changing, the digital world is changing things, technology is changing. So, and then of course now we have this discussion going on with female filmmakers and equal pay, or females just in the entertainment industry rather, and equal pay, and more equal opportunities. And so there's a lot that's changing that feels exciting, but also, a little bit nerve-wracking at the same time. So I feel like if you're going to be in this field, you can't just put your toe in the water. You have to dive in and then be prepared to have your lifeboat and one paddle, and you're not going to be on a yacht. I mean, I'm talking in metaphor, obviously. I like metaphors. But
I was about to say, you're not even going to have the lifeboat.
You might
maybe
not
a paddle.
Have a life vest.
You'll just have one paddle. You're going to have
to make your own paddle. You're going to have to, fundraise for your own paddle just to steer your course. And it's scary, but it's also exciting. I think that's why it's kind of a great place to be right now. I mean, my colleagues in the documentary film world say we're in the golden age of documentary filmmaking. And I think they're right. I think that all of this access to technology, this access to reaching your audience and distributing your own film directly to your audience on a platform like Vimeo.
Fuck Vimeo.
I still love Vimeo. On a platform like Vimeo or Netflix or Snag Films. I mean, there's just a lot of new growth.
No, absolutely. And I think the people who will take advantage of it properly are the people who can incorporate all those things you said, especially knowing how to reach an audience now is so critical to any film and any filmmaker. It's like we all have to be mini stars now, and because we need to have followings, we need to have... It's not like you can just make a film in a bubble anymore, and hope it gets out there and hope somebody sees it. It's like you have to be actively involved on a day-to-day basis with it, and that makes me very tired.
It is definitely, it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, it is not a career where you can just kick back and say, your agent's going to take care of this for you. You are your agent.
Right.
You are making the opportunities happen. You are negotiating your own contracts, and you're working for very little pay most of the time. So it's, and you're working, how many holidays have I worked on now? I mean, I filmed on Thanksgiving, I filmed on the 4th of July, or I've been prepping for a shoot on a holiday and filmed the day after. I mean, it's just, a traditional lifestyle is gone.
Right, especially in documentary, because now you have to film somebody else having Thanksgiving, right?
Right. That's right. Exactly.
All right, cool, Kiira. Well, thanks for chatting with me, and hopefully you enjoyed the chat.
Thank you, Vitaly. Thanks for having me be a part of this and for being your first female on this podcast. It's exciting.
Hopefully I'll have some more. If you can recommend some, throw them my way.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Vitaly. Have a good one.
Bye. I'll wrap the show up. Thank you, Kiira, once again for coming on. And even though we recorded this a long time ago, it's finally out. We do have 2 episodes already pre-recorded. The next one will be Eddie Rosenstein, and he's a documentary filmmaker. He makes TV stuff as well. So stay tuned and enjoy.